In my first week, the host, who is managing the board and everything, gets fired. And the owner turns to me and says, okay, you're the captain of this ship now, go. Knowing nothing. I'm getting questions from R&D. What can we do better now? What changes would you like to see? So I'm very optimistic that in the coming year, we will see some changes down the road. Of this dog looking at my face and starting to lunge at the only thing that he can lunge at towards my face. And behind him is the police officer in charge of the canine unit. And the look of panic, you know, when you're actually helping people, helping them be productive, trying to solve issues, or giving them what they want, you know, it's a totally different animal. And it's much more fulfilling.
Welcome to the Flamin Connect podcast, where we share real stories, experiences, and insights from people who know agriculture today and care where it's going in the future.
Do you ever play the game when you're going down the highway and you wave at everybody that you pass just to see if they wave back? And it's usually like over a 50% return ratio, right?
If you're on the grids,
absolutely.
It's an automatic if you're on grids.
Yeah.
But how bad do you feel when you're traveling, like you're not around home? Okay, so you don't know anyway, you're not waving, yet you're driving, and then someone waves to you in like a town where you're not from. You're like, okay, not only do I feel like a jerk, but were they just being nice, or did they mistake me for someone else? And it gets me every time, like, it doesn't matter. And then you give them this awkward wave as they kind of drive by, like.
Well, and everyone's got their own unique wave too, right? Like I do one of these. Like I know my dad, he would have his hand on the steering wheel and he would just do the one finger up, you know?
Yeah. It's amazing how you notice it though, because I know for a fact no one knows who I am, but you still get the wave, and like I feel terrible when I miss it.
Yeah.
So now intentionally, as soon as I hit the grid road and I see a car coming, you brace yourself, you get ready, and all right, here's the wave, here's coming. And 90% of the time they wave back. It's like, okay, good. You know you're in the.
You almost want to turn around if you miss. It's like, oh, he's gonna think I'm a jerk now, and turn around, chase him down, wave at him, go back.
I like how. Everyone's got a patented wave. I remember my bus driver, his wave. I guess you can't see this over the sound. There's no video, but it was like this. Like it was like like he was wiping the
one end of the
off.
windshield, the other.
Yeah, and then there's the cool guy waves. There's this one, or
We should have a handbook of waves.
Is that a Saskatchewan thing, or does that happen in Alberta as well?
it happens in Alberta, but to a much lesser extent, and usually to people that, you know, like a vehicle you recognize.
Yeah.
It's got to happen in rural communities everywhere.
You'd think so.
Got it.
Probably. And probably more in like maybe southern Alberta where like there's more farms and stuff. Like that was an oil country and that was wasn't near as because it's very transient too, so you don't get to know people.
Well, maybe that's part of it too, is there's a lot of people, you know, who have never lived outside the RM that they were born in. Yeah. You know, and that's, they stayed there, they farm there, they know everybody in there. If you're coming into my territory, I'm going to wave at you.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch gears here. We're going to go into our info session with Sean Geddes, sales manager for Flamin. Welcome, Sean.
I'd like to talk or ask you about ag specialty trailers. And several years ago, I think a similar question of why was asked. What was that question, and how did it develop into the product line that it is today?
A lot of it's around providing efficiency, saving time, saving tractor hours. Back in my big iron days, Regan, you might know, was a tractor worth, a four-wheel drive tractor or quad track is worth about 50 cents a horsepower hour.
Give or take, yeah.
So your 620 quad track is $310 an hour just for the hour meter to flip an hour. So what if we could save 40 of those and you got more done? With a seed tender, that's what that does. You can service multiple drills with it, less semis in the field. There's just one. You're idling less. You're seeding more than you're stopped. And so we found ways to help consumers achieve efficiency, get more done, save some money. That tractor idling, that sprayer idling is not making you money.
I think
it's actually costing you money.
I didn't understand seed tenders. Like, I'm not going to lie. They're just not common in all of my farming or hobby farming experience, or hanging out with my in-laws and going and driving a combine, you know, a couple times a year. Is like, we don't have seed tenders. So when we started getting into them, I couldn't wrap my head around why you needed one. And then I remember we went out to a customer's place with the camera to like go, and I watched it happen in real time. I was like, oh my God, I get it now. And I watched him on the top of the drill with the remote and swinging the auger. And like, it just, you
One
talk
man
about,
show.
it was unreal. And it was just, it didn't stop. Yeah, it stopped for a few minutes to fill. There was no messing around. There was no moving trucks. It was just so efficient. I was like, I get it now.
Saving 20 minutes to half an hour on a fill.
Yeah.
Let alone my personal experience with that thing that's on the side of the air card set auger conveyor is a bit of a nightmare. I think every farmer has a love-hate relationship with those.
Yeah.
You don't need that. 50, 60 grand if you're buying a new drill. And it's not providing you with any efficiency or productivity, really. Some guys just take their own conveyors to the field if they don't have a seed tender because they don't like that thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah, if we can save you time, do it quicker, one truck, not moving multiple trucks, I don't know, I think it's a pretty big deal. And so we were doing some math just on one drill, real conservative numbers, over a 10-day period, you'll seed an extra section.
Wow.
Let alone servicing multiple with that same unit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big deal. Well, let alone just the convenience.
Let alone the tractor idling when it doesn't have to idle.
Yeah. I remember when it could have been the same place we were doing the seed tender video, or it could have been another one, but I remember watching, we were getting to the end of the day and then tender came in, guys were still out seeding, and he filled up every single compartment and tarped it. And the thought went through my head like, yeah, because now it's ready and it's one less thing to do tomorrow, and they're just gonna roll. So talk about side draws. So what's the difference between a seed tender and a side draw, and how are they used? Because they're definitely different tools.
Well, you could call them both seed tenders, I guess.
Yeah.
So the CST 1550 conveyor unit we're talking about is all self-contained. It will load itself, or it'll load the air card or the commodity card itself.
It's got an engine on it, right?
It has a diesel powered engine, the conveyance, all the hydraulics to maneuver it, scaled the whole, put your prescription in, how you want to do it quickly. But they come with probably a higher end price tag. Mm-hmm. Side draw is a convenient way with multiple compartments that also is separated to the tarp line, so you can keep your commodity separated. That is easy to load into a conveyor or auger that's mounted on your commodity cart or air cart.
So it's essentially the same idea, same concept, just without the ability to load it.
It'd be like a lighter version, like a light,
Yeah. Is it, can you still get scales on a side draw?
100%.
So then you can still run the same idea with the prescription of knowing what you're putting in and save time that way?
You bet. And you can also use it as a harvest tool, backup trailer in the field. Truck goes down, surge trailer. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Guys like them for when they're cleaning seed, multiple compartments and bins.
Guys need extra capacity when they're doing oats, so that's a trailer that goes into the rotation. Yeah.
That concludes our info session. Thanks for joining us today, Sean. We're going to move into our special guest portion. Our guest today is Brad Grass, Territory Sales Manager for Right Way Manufacturing. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good day, Brad.
Good day.
So where are you from, Brad?
Okay. Well, currently I live in Regina. That's where our head office for Right Way Manufacturing is. But I did live in Saskatoon, which is where we're doing this podcast, if you're keeping score at home, from 85 to 2007. So I lived in Saskatoon for quite a length of time. But I've been working out of Regina since 2008. And I travel all over Western Canada, visiting dealers, talking to farmers, and whatnot. Yeah.
Are you cover all of Western Canada then?
I do. So
Okay.
It's going to sound crazy.
Yeah.
But right now, and this is a temporary thing, but right now I'm covering Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. So I'm, depending on the time of year, I'm living in my truck like 3 weeks out of the month. Mm-hmm. Just recently, I just came back from Peace River Country and visiting some farmers up there. And I was up at the Fairview office with John.
Yeah.
Just recently up there. So
shout out to John Lugman. Love that guy.
Hey, John. No, yeah, he's a hardworking fella. There's some interesting characters up in that part of the country. But yeah, it's been a trip because it's different everywhere you go, and that's been the juggling of it's a different animal in Manitoba with the gumbo than it is in Peace River country, where they use McFarland's, which I've never seen around here. But they're like diamond harrows. They don't until recently they started using our 7 bars. But then you go into southern Alberta, and it's a different animal again, or even just north of Southey, where it's like a sandy loam in that part, so you need a bit of a lighter touch. So you got to kind of understand, geographically speaking, where you're going. But you also have to listen to, the farmers who you're talking to, because they're going to know better than anybody else, what it is that works for them and what they need, right? So,
where did you grow up?
Okay, so we have a small family farm in Ontario.
Okay.
Right. So I did grow up on the farm, right? But then it's too long of a story, but we moved to Saskatchewan. This would have been in the early 80s. So I actually went to university at U of S from 85 to 89, kind of majoring in communications.
Oh, yeah.
And so from there, I got away from the family farm and I got into communications. And then in the 90s, I was in the media. So our friends in Saskatoon might remember me. Before it was Global, it was STV. And my first media job was doing the weather on STV.
Was STV, was their logo a triangle?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, STV in a triangle.
Channel 4, right?
Yes.
I believe it's Channel 4.
That's right.
Because depending on how the wind was blowing, I could get it at home or not.
That's true. True story. Yeah. And one of my funnest parts about that job, because the weather, even though I studied meteorology, I studied it after I got the job. You didn't need to know meteorology to get the weather gig because you got all your information from Environment Canada. You just had to make it entertaining. That was your job. But eventually, I got a certificate in meteorology as I was working there that first year.
That's an online certificate in meteorology? Is that how this works?
Yes. Nothing too complicated.
Is there a blue screen class that you have to take as part of this?
I learned on the go.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
In fact, my first day, it was actually at a green screen behind me.
Yeah.
And I had the guys, I worked with the guys in the control room, and I had them put my name up on chroma key. And my first day on the air, I said, okay, I want to get this out of the way because I grew up with this all my life. But here's my name in big letters, Brad Grass. Now, the guys in the control room, take the R's out of my name, and what do you get? And there it was on the screen, Bad Gas, right there behind me. And it's okay, get that out of the way. We got it, right? Good. And then we just move forward. But we had a lot of fun. But the funnest part about that job was half of the job was community work and working for charities and such. And it was a great big 1967 convertible Pontiac Parisienne, bright yellow, called the Sunshine Patrol car. And we had a sponsor, Dairyland was our sponsor. So in the summertime, what we would do is we would load up with ice cream, right, in the back. And I had a camera guy in the back seat. And I'd drive around town in the Sunshine Patrol. And we'd hit the parks. And by halfway through the summer, the kids knew who we were, and they would come running like the ice cream man, right? Mm-hmm. So whenever they saw the Sunshine Patrol, they're running, and I'm throwing out ice creams to the happy kids, and the camera guy is getting it all, for the air, and it's sweet. It was a lot of fun. But then we had a change in sponsorship by the end of the summer, and I no longer had ice cream. What the sales department gave me were boxes of those little cheddar cheese packets.
Oh, yeah.
So here it is, 30 degrees plus, and I got a box full of sweaty cheese. And we're running up, and I said to the camera guy, because I said to the sales department, this isn't going to fly. He says, no, this will be fine. All right. So we load up with the sweaty cheese in the back seat, and the camera guy's going, and I turn to the camera guys, we're pulling up to the park, and I said, whatever happens, keep rolling. So the kids come running, they're all excited. I crack open the box, and I start tossing out these sweaty packets of cheese. And there was just a beat. And the kids are looking at this and they're confused. And then they just start chucking this cheese. And I'm getting behind the wheel and he's got it all on tape. But that was hilarious. So yeah, I did that for a couple of years, but then I was offered a job on a morning radio program. Somebody dropped out and then they called me and they said, is this something you might be interested in? I didn't study radio, but I said, sure. Because I've always believed if opportunity knocks, just walk in.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And then either you're going to sink or swim, but at least you give it a try. So, I got into morning radio, and my first week, the host, who was managing the board and everything, gets fired. And the owner turns to me and says, "Okay, you're the captain of this ship now. Go." Knowing nothing. Those first couple of weeks were probably the worst radio you've ever heard in your life. And I'm trying to learn the pots.
Bad gas, just figuring it out.
But eventually, I figured it out. And again, in radio, one of the best parts about it was going out and doing charity gigs and raising money for good causes. And I think at that time, this is my favorite story. It was raising money for the Children's Health Foundation at the time. I don't think the wing was even built yet. They're raising money for the Children's Health Foundation for the children's wing. And we had this great idea. We said, you know what? We got the police department and their canine unit, and they had some sort of a PR campaign going at the time. So I said, well, hey, let's work with the canine unit, and we'll figure out a way to raise money. I have an idea. Why don't I get dressed up in one of those bite suits? And we'll charge tickets, and people can come, and then I'll just run, and they'll send the dog after me, right, and take me down, and all the money goes to a great cause. Great idea. And to add just icing on the top, on the day, I stopped off at the grocery store, and I bought a packet of wieners, and I got some tape, and I taped the wieners to my butt. And now bear in mind, I've got the full body suit. Now I've got a helmet on. Okay, no face mask, just a helmet. But the full body suit is the pants and the torso with the arms. Now the dogs, and this is important to remember, the dogs are trained to grab the arm. What they do is when they run at the victim, they actually throw their bodies. The dog throws its body at the person to knock them down, and then it grabs their arm. Right? Okay. So they put a great big chain link fence up. Okay, and there must have been 60 yards. 60 or 100 yards. I'm not sure how, but it was.
I'm getting anxiety. Listen, it's like I don't know. I've done some dumb stuff and like some dumb stuff for money. I don't think you could pay me to do this.
So
I feel like the wieners are overkill. That's just what I'm thinking.
It was for comic relief. It's just the wieners on my ass, and I'm there in the suit, and the cops are there, and the canine. I was introduced to the canine dog, and go. So the crowd on the other side of the fence on both sides, and I'm running as fast as you can run in a bite suit, right? And just lumbering along. And then eventually about 10, 15 seconds in, I hear behind me, go. So now I'm running and I can hear behind me, boom, on my back. Now, when I fly forward, I wasn't really thinking about it, but I landed on my arms. So I pinned my arms accidentally underneath me, and my head turns around, and I'll never forget this. It's burned into my brain, but it's the vision of this dog looking at my face and starting to lunge at the only thing that he can lunge at, towards my face. And behind him is the police officer in charge of the canine unit, and the look of panic on his face as he's lunging for the leash, and he grabs it in time for the dog to snap in front of my face. So he pulls the dog back, and then I'm getting up, and I can see there's about 5 or 6 cops in the background killing themselves laughing. So yeah, I mean we dodged a bullet there, but no, that was the crazy stuff that we did when we were on air.
Awesome. That would be a fun gig.
Yeah.
You think of lots of stuff you get to do in media, interacting with the community, and like building that brand. You got like different friends that do it, and it's like, you get paid to do this? Yeah. How? Why? And like you'll see him like at Craven sometimes just doing stuff. It's like, so you got a free ticket and you're handing out like drinks and stuff. Yeah. And then you're just gonna stay for the weekend. Yeah. So you got paid to go to Craven. Yeah. Okay. Like I'm doing this wrong, like a little bit here.
and you're listening to music that you like all day, right? And in the 90s, you guys actually brought this up at a podcast, and I totally agreed in an earlier podcast. But country music in the 90s was country music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? There we go.
It's not very good. Not the crap now. Yeah. I wouldn't want to be doing it now. But back then, that was, so you're listening to that beautiful music all day and you're having all this fun. eventually, I was asked to leave where I was working to help launch a new radio station in Regina. At that time, it was called Big Dog. And that was a unique opportunity. And not just in radio, but anytime you get to open up a new shop, is a very unique opportunity. Great feeling. So that's what brought me to Regina, and we opened up this facility there. And it was for, at the time, a country called Astral Radio, which is really based out of Quebec, but they were later bought out by Bell. But Astral was a very, very large company, and they hired a talent coach out of Los Angeles to train their morning teams. So when myself and my co-host came to Regina, this talent coach and this same guy who worked with the likes of Jay Leno and Ryan Seacrest and guys like that, was spent 3 months training us on how to be on air. We had to unlearn everything we thought we knew about radio, and his goal was to have us reach a level of authenticity. That was the golden ticket. If you can learn to be authentic, if you're not afraid to be an open book and to be vulnerable and just open yourself up on the mic, and that will communicate to your listening audience. And if you can be authentic, then you can make that connection with them, and they can listen to you on a different level than they listen to other radio stations.
Sure.
So that was a lesson that you can take with you in anything you do in life. Because the bottom line, if you can just learn to be authentic and to be truthful, not just to the person you're talking to, but to yourself, then the world's your oyster.
So it was interesting because talking about authenticity, we were doing a little bit of research last night and trying to, who is Brad Grass, and kind of what brought him where he is. And so Hutch sends this video he got off of YouTube. It's you teaching your co-host how to kiss somebody when you're on camera. I don't know if you ever seen it. The video is on YouTube, and it is absolutely hilarious. I was laughing out loud last night.
I remember that.
Do you? And so you put your hand around it, and this poor coworker that you're working with, this young kid, was just paranoid as all hell. Any of the listeners have a chance, take a look at it. I don't know how to search it up.
You've got to send that to me because I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
Like and subscribe for more.
Yeah.
But that's something people can relate to, right? Like it's I don't know.
I've never
I guess.
Yeah.
No, but it just brings in a level of humility, I guess, to what you do, right?
Yeah. That's true. So, funny side note, my co-host, my last name is Grass, and her real last name was Prozac. Brad Grass and Heather Prozac. And we wanted Grass and Prozac in the morning to be our morning show moniker, but they wouldn't go for that because we were a country station. If we were a rock station, maybe.
Then it would have been.
Yeah, higher and higher. So around 2012 or so, I thought, you know what? Okay, so I've done this, and this is fun, but it's time to move on. And I ran into a gentleman named Cam Johnson and his brother Chris. And Cam's probably one of the biggest investors in Right Way and several businesses. And Heather Forbes is our CEO. And we just hit it off. We were working on a separate project together, and we just hit it off. We worked really well. And even before I know it, I was talking about my early days, and I grew up in the farm in Ontario. And Cam said, "Hey, would you be interested? We're looking for a sales guy for Right Way. Is this something that might interest you?" Yeah. And then here we are, like 8 years later, and I haven't looked back.
What was that transition like?
Oh, it was a hell of a transition.
Yeah.
Going from, it was like a polar bear dip kind of a transition because you're going from, one different medium to into sales. But what I liked about this, and particularly this industry, is I get to go back to my roots. So everything in my life now has come full circle, but it's going out and meeting the farmers, and meeting with the dealers and guys like you, right? So, and that face-to-face, which you don't have when you turn on a microphone, Sure, you do remotes and things like that, but day-to-day, this sort of like the human interaction, when you're actually helping people, helping them be productive, trying to solve issues or giving them what they want, it's a totally different animal. And it's much more fulfilling, when you can help somebody be productive or solve an issue, solve a problem.
You can see the end result.
Yeah.
Whereas in radio, you put it out there. You really don't
You can't see. You can't see your audience. You don't know if you're hitting the bullseye or not. Mm-hmm. Sure, it's fun, but this is a much more tactile sort of industry where you can actually see and feel and hear the results on a daily basis. So it was a game changer for me. Plus the fact that the people that I happen to work for, they don't micromanage. It's one of the best employers I've ever worked for. They let you play to your strengths. They have a wide open door policy. And that if you look at the company, the turnover rate is very low. So I actually think a lot about Flamin. There's a lot of guys in Flamin's who have been there from the beginning, and are still there, for crying out loud, a long time. So it's a lot like that,
What is the culture like within Right Way, and how do you add or contribute to that culture?
It's becoming more and more like a family where we are growing. Like just recently, I think it was almost 3 years ago to the day, they bought Morris. So it went from Morris Industries to Morris Equipment is what it's called now. And just the other day, actually, I had a tour. We bought this building in the back 9 of our main office in Regina that Sask Energy had sold. So we got the winning bid. And it was a lot more real estate than what I initially thought of. So I was just walking through and looking at all the new laser cutters and such that they have in the new building and all the cement they had poured a few months back, and all the electricians have been in, and they put up new office walls, and it's a beautiful facility. So now we have like a huge factory floor in Regina, as well as our Right Way factory in Imperial, Saskatchewan, which is where we make all of our rollers and harrows and such. So we've brought in this new family, into the Right Way family, and it's almost been seamless. I mean, it's and the Morris guys are a great bunch of guys, and I've been doing now. Whenever we do a trade show, it's a Morris/Right Way hybrid booth. Yeah, so I get to know these guys, and they're very knowledgeable, but and I'm going to use the word again, authentic group of guys.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think at Crop Production Show this year, Right Way and Morris.
Yeah,
was in the same. Yeah.
So, what does the future hold then for that company? And I mean, you probably can only share so much, but where do you think the product lines are going? Where is the company going?
It's funny you should ask that question, because that's what they're doing right now. They've hired this big muckety-muck marketing firm to determine what's the next step. So do we continue on as Morris and Right Way, or do we create a whole new brand name moving forward? And if between me and you and your 30 best friends, if you put dollars to donuts, I think what's probably going to happen is we're going to keep our brand names, right? But Superior Farms Equipment is the investor that owns both companies. Here's what I like about both Right Way and Morris. It's Canadian owned, Saskatchewan money, Canadian money, right? Mm-hmm. And everything's being built right here in Saskatchewan. We're not far, right? And we're going strong. We've got a lot of Canadian dollars behind us. So that's in my book, that's a big plus. You know, and I'm not knocking anyone else. I never, ever like to knock the competition, because everybody has their strengths, and there's the pie's big enough for everybody, and everybody has different needs, and everybody is a different fit for someone else. So I never knock anyone, but I do think that's a great strength for us, is the fact that we are right here in the heart of Saskatchewan and just, growing exponentially.
You could call it a strength if you want to, or you could even just simply call it something to be proud of. And like, if you look at a lot of, there's a lot of agriculture companies in, Western Canada and there's a ton of manufacturing ones in Saskatchewan that are just Canadian roots, Saskatchewan roots, and still remain Saskatchewan roots. And, there are strengths to that, but there's also, it's just cool to have companies that come from nowhere in the world, nowhere Saskatchewan, that are big players, in industrial agriculture, like in global agriculture. So I think that's cool. Regardless if you wanted to chalk it up as a strength or not, or a competitive advantage or not, it's even just something to be proud of in being from Western Canada.
Because it's a rarity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Especially these days when everybody's kind of amalgamating and being bought out by someone else. And so it's nice to know that, everything's right here.
Mm-hmm. What are you passionate about in the ag world?
Oh, man. My favorite time of year is spring. because it's almost like a do-over, right? So that's and the challenges sometimes, especially these days, of what it presents. So that's my favorite time of the year, is this time of the year, because I'm on the road a lot and I'm going out and I'm meeting guys. And
you're also selling harrows and rollers but sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, there's that too. But
prepping that seed bed.
Yeah. But that really is it for me. That's my favorite part of the job, and that's my passion, is just getting out there and meeting people and kind of, and it's infectious. When you come across those success stories, and hey, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you'll meet someone and it's a horror story, right?
Yeah.
But then the challenge is you bring that back home and you talk to the boys around the table and you go, hey, look, this is a situation here that we need to deal with, and suddenly you've got like 8 heads around the table finding a solution, and then like a month or 2 down the road, you got a solution for this.
Yeah, one. Providing solutions, I think, too, like just in my life, is probably one of the most rewarding things. Everyone's got problems. Everyone's got a thing that needs to be, and if you can be part of the reason or the catalyst that gets some change, that's always a rewarding thing.
Yeah.
Just wait for Right Way to come out with some grain carts, and Brad's gonna be like, my favorite time is fall, harvest time. It's like, instead of a redo, it's like, it's where the fruits of your labor really come together.
Speaking of grain carts, land rollers, harrows, very simple. Innovation in the future of Right Way products.
Oh yeah, good question. Because and truth be told, to be fully transparent here, the last couple of years I wasn't getting a lot of love from R&D because all of their focus and attention was on the Morris acquisition.
Morris, for sure,
right? But just these last couple of months, now the dust has settled. It's been 3 years, I think now. So the dust has finally settled, and Morris is going with like full bore, all guns blazing. I'm getting questions from R&D. What can we do better now? What changes would you like to see? So I'm very optimistic that in the coming year we will see some changes down the road. And again, fully transparent, I'd like to see our rock pickers to have longer hitches. Number one.
Oh yeah,
because tractors are getting bigger, right? They're getting harder to see.
Yeah, it's just a little thing, yeah.
Right. So and it's a little thing, but it's not difficult to do. But we can do that, right? And possibly because everyone seems to be going to replaceable teeth. And the more farmers I talk to, because I do my own little informal surveys, and a lot of guys just like always having sharp teeth on their pickers. So, okay, maybe that's something that we can do too. But the advantage to our picker right now, because it's so basic and so simple, and you know what it does really well? Picks rocks.
I was going to say picks rocks.
Yeah. But it's a lot more affordable than the other guys that are out there right now. Sure. But yeah, we can make these changes. And we're currently looking at, our land rollers have the 5 and the 7 sections have these cover rollers in between the big drums. And I always get this question, like, that's not putting down the same amount of pressure as those big drums. And my answer is always, well, no, the other guys come after us for that, right? They try and put the fear of God into guys, like those little drums aren't going to push that rock in. And my answer is, those cover rollers, 90% of their job is finishing, leaving a nice finish. Any little rock that's going to come perfectly between those 2 big drums and hit that little finishing roller, it's spring-loaded down. It'll be enough to push that rock in. But I guarantee you, because we have shorter drum sections, all of our sections are touching the ground. You know what's not going to push that rock in? A land roller with a longer section that's kind of hanging in the air. That misses the ground altogether.
Yeah.
That's not pushing nothing in, right? So, you have your gives and your takes. But we are looking at that to see if there's some way that we can, even apply more down pressure to make guys feel a bit safer, but little tweaks down the road,
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, for a guy that travels Western Canada, but like as far west in Western Canada to as far east as you can call Western Canada, what do you think the biggest difference is? Because there's lots. There's differences in the people. There's differences in the dirt. There's differences in the crops. There's differences in the growing seasons. There's differences in, like, what would you?
I'll tell you this, because what I didn't mention in this podcast is a lot of my aunts and uncles, a lot of my relatives are actually in the Maritimes, right? Like in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia. So I spent some time out there too. The one group of people in this country that will give you the shirt off their back, and you think I'm going to say Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan's a very close second. It's Newfoundland, Labrador.
Yeah.
Newfies, they're the nicest people. So, quick story. It's a blizzard, right? And I'm stuck, and I'm like 20. And I'm with two of my cousins, and we're driving up to St. John, Newfoundland. And there's a huge blizzard, and we're stuck. And I don't even remember the name of the small community. But we make it into this little small community. Everyone's all snowed in. And there's this little pub. It was like 1 a.m, but the light was on. So we get in, and there's like a handful of people there. And it was like we were their family. You know, they just brought us in, and they gave us food, and they gave us hot beverages, and they gave us a bed to eat. Somebody had a freaking mandolin, and they started playing music, right? And they're drinking the Screech, and it was like the most incredible time. And they were so giving and generous, and it always stayed with me. But of all the places I've lived, Saskatchewan is just so grounded, and it's just grounded, good people, you know, that you can like rely on, and that you can, they're unlike anyone else in the province. Alberta's a close second, but that's the difference. Is the people in Saskatchewan are, unlike anywhere else in the country.
This has been the first part of a 2-part conversation with Brad Grass. Part 2 will be released in another episode, so please stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for tuning into Flaman Connect. For Mitch Flaman and Regan Kuntz, I'm your host, Trevor Grindy. Talk to you next time.